I'm Marley Caden. Global Payments is rallying today after activist investor Elliott Management announced a stake in the payment company following its acquisition of WorldPay earlier this year. To tell us more about this overlooked stock, let's welcome in Ben Watson. He's our Senior Manager of Trading Services for Charles Schwab. Now, Ben, what does this Elliott stake mean for Global Payments?
Well, I'll tell you what, Marley, when Elliott steps in, that's not necessarily, if you think about it in kind of a holistic approach, that's not necessarily the best indication that your stock price performance has been stellar recently. In fact, Global Payments down off of their high around that 120 mark earlier this year, and now coming back up, off total about 31%. So Elliott stepping in, their general modus operandi is coming into companies that are undervalued but are also underperforming, and then forcing through that activist pressure changes to return shareholder value. And that certainly seems as if what the expectation is, even though we don't know really at this point the size of the Elliott stake or the extent of their terms. But you can point to some recent examples, Southwest Airlines, where there have been some challenges to operations from those companies. But from this stock standpoint, building into this ascending triangle here underneath this 84 mark, and that's kind of where it's tagging today with a little bit of declining momentum, suggests that there's some possibility, but it hasn't yet really kind of taken hold of Global Payments here yet, Marley.
It's really interesting. Details limited on this, right? We don't know what their stake is. The traditional approach of an activist investor doesn't necessarily track here. Jefferies came out and said we struggle to see what could be done through the traditional activist lens here. One of the ideas that was tossed out was that their acquisition of WorldPay was not widely viewed as a positive, but the three-way deal does not require a shareholder vote, so Elliott would likely be unable to block that. What do you think this investment, on the positive here, they're up 6.5% on the news, but moving forward, where do we anticipate this going with such a limited information?
Yeah, exactly. I think until there's some clarity around what the deal is and what it entails, I think you kind of still have to look at this from the story that the technical analysis perspective tells, which is if there's a break above this 54 resistance in the longer term chart, the next target overhead symmetrically is up around that 95 mark. And it's doing it with a little bit of a muted response. You think about the expectation of Elliott coming in, and if the investors are thinking there's an opportunity for Elliott to really blow the doors off of things with changes, might expect a little bit more movement. We just didn't see it even in the short-term trade. If you look at the shorter chart here, we go down to a 5-day, 5-minute chart. A little bit of enthusiasm, but it wanes very, very quickly. You get a kind of a weakening RSI perspective, and the 84 becomes a pretty solid resistance area. Not that it can't break through, but it has its challenges to limit this upside potential.
Interesting to see the RSI drop down. Generally when you get these big headlines, we'll see a massive pop there, but falling down below that 68 mark. Do you think it's just waiting for clarity here? Is that what it's going to take?
Very likely. I think as you start to see maybe some more information coming into the system, but at the same time, that's part of not having transparency here. We don't know what Elliott's ultimate goal is. And with a middleware payment processor like Global Payments, and with the wide variety of companies within the Elliott stable, there could be other machinations at work here, maybe for breaking things up and putting to work in other places.
Well, Ben, we appreciate it. Thanks for breaking down the technicals for us. That's Ben Watson for Overlooked Stocks.